Welcome back. We're on episode 59. In the previous episode, I'd been telling you about the predator whom my parents trusted, Swarn. My first memory of Swarn was when we visited their house in Navy Nagar, Kolaba. I might have been around 8 or 9 years old. The moment I laid eyes on him, I felt an overwhelming sense of revulsion. It felt like a physical wave of oppressive and dreadful feeling. Like every fiber of my being was screaming to get away from him. I did not even know what that word revulsion meant till that moment. I found him so repulsive that it was all I could do to not recoil physically. Swan was built like an ox, every calf on his leg as big as my waist. Navy Jawans wear shorts as their uniform, so that's how you could always see that. When he spoke, his voice repulsed me, his accent repulsed me. He had a very sharp and thin nose, with the tip reaching way farther like an arrow. His nose repulsed me. Everything about him repulsed me. His manner of speaking, his strutting, the way he danced, everything. I calmed myself and avoided direct eye contact or direct conversation with him. This continued for as long as I ever saw this person. Whenever we slept over at Sukh's place, we all had to sleep in the same room, which was their living room as well as their bedroom. This is because if you're a Navy Jawan, you need to share your house with another family that occupies the second room in that house. At bedtime, when we asked for sheets to cover ourselves, Sukh refused to give us any. I asked again because I had never in my life slept without a sheet covering me. Sukh dismissively said that there was no need for a covering because it was summer. We were sleeping right under the fan in our nighties. I felt distinctly uncomfortable without a sheet covering me because at home we always had a fine cotton sheet covering us. If mom had known that Sukh would deny us bedsheets to cover ourselves, she would have gladly sent ours over. By this point, I begged Sukh to give me a sheet to cover myself. I said I couldn't sleep without one. She flat out refused and said I'd get used to sleeping without a sheet and to just go to sleep. The sleeping arrangement was for us to sleep on a mattress spread on the floor while Sukh and her husband were a couple of feet away on their bed. Within a few minutes, Sukh's husband started pinching and tickling her. Sukh started giggling and squirming and saying something. Even though I did not have any idea what this meant, it made me feel very uncomfortable. And I felt like they should not have been doing this. I wanted them to stop, but being a meek little child, I just kept quiet. Now that I think of it, I find it appalling that the couple could not refrain from a romp in the bed when they had invited children to sleep in the same room. If they were really so desperate, they could have waited for us to fall asleep and then gone into the kitchen for privacy. I find it absolutely unacceptable and disgusting if someone thinks it is okay to do the deed when there are others sleeping in the same room. Worse, if there are others still awake. In the early morning, before sunrise, something woke me up. I became aware of a hand on my thigh. My thigh was held in a very firm grip. I was vaguely aware of my cousin busy in the kitchen. I then realized that my cousin's husband Swarn was lying between my sister and I and had gripped each of our thighs in his hand. I was not able to process this and fell asleep again and woke again to the same thing continuing. Over the next few nights or early mornings, this repeated. This continued to happen over several overnight visits of ours. I'm not sure of the time duration over which this occurred. While I never said anything to anyone, my sisters didn't either. Whenever we visited Sukh, we helped around the household chores such as scrubbing utensils, cooking and all of that kind of stuff. Mom had insisted that I learn to make rotis when I was 12. We had a household helper at home, but Sukh did not, so we were very happy to help around. I was making rotis in the kitchen and Swarn executed his sinister plan. He used to plan his molesting sessions. Swarn asked Sukh and Molly to go to the supermarket. They did not tell me that they were leaving the house and that I was going to be home alone with Swarn. Swarn walked into the kitchen and started his assault. I remember feeling horrible, and yet my underlying concern was that the roti would burn. I kept trying to save the roti. I will not go into details of the assault for obvious reasons, but throughout the incidents, I kept waiting for Sukh or Molly to walk into the kitchen. I kept hoping that they would come in and then he would have to stop. They never came because Swarn had ensured that they were not in the house. Once he was done, I continued making rotis quietly. I felt horrible and I felt I could tell no one. Swarn warned me not to tell anyone. As if I could, I thought in my mind. Mom had, by hitting me each time I had asked something she considered inappropriate, conditioned me to not report anything like this if it ever happened to me. In fact, I could not even understand what was happening. It was too shocking and confusing. There was an overwhelming sense of shame and sadness. I felt like a crumpled flower. I was not the same. Within 2 days, Swarn called up my parents and asked them to take me away. I left quietly. My parents were oblivious to what had happened, and we kept visiting Sukh and Swarn regularly. At times, I tried to say something during conversations, hoping to shame him. I wanted him to feel bad. I wanted to put him down. But I was a kid who did not understand that some people had no sense of shame or guilt. The 1 or 2 times that I tried to shame Swarn, he just ended up ridiculing me and laughing at me. I was very surprised by this because I grew up seeing that if you did something that you were scolded or shamed for, you showed appropriate remorse or at least kept quiet and hung your head in shame. Yet here was this man who strutted around confidently, grinning and going about life as though he had never done anything to be ashamed of. Later, when Swarn and Sukh came back to India from 2 years in Lagos, Nigeria, Mom happened to notice my expression when I looked at Swarn. Sukh and Swarn were entering the house and I was also coming back from school at the same time. And Mom saw me look at Swarn and my face just go pale. Later, Mom pulled me aside and asked me if Swarn had done something to me. Just seeing my face when I looked at him, she knew. I looked down at my feet. Mom probed and I told her, I thought now when Mom tells Sukh, surely she will leave this man. Mom told Sukh. Sukh confronted her husband. As this news spread, other minor girls from our family came forward with their stories. This man had a strategy for targeting girls who were old enough to have breasts but too small to understand anything else. He could easily intimidate them. I was not his first victim. He had a series of victims. After hearing my account, my sisters said that they too remembered waking up to Swarn gripping their legs. This incident was deeply scarring. I remember worrying for Swarn's daughter. I was convinced he would assault her too. That is why I tried to warn her. When she was about 5 years old or so, I told her, "Your dad is a bad man." She started crying and said, "No, my dad is not bad." This alarmed me and I stopped trying to warn Sukh's kids after that. Later, I did visit Sukh and her children, always making it a point to ignore Swarn. I could not believe it when Sukh would say to me, "Jijja ji nu sasri kaal bula dya kar." She even complained to my mother that I was not greeting her husband. No, I was not about to acknowledge or greet my molester. Redemption, however small, came to me when Swarn developed a neural disorder. After retiring from the Navy, Swarn got a job testing grapes. I don't know how or why he ended up with that particular assignment. Gluttonous and greedy as he was, He would gobble up boxes full of grapes that the farmers gifted him without washing or cleaning. It seems he would have them right out of the box. The theory is that having so many grapes laden with chemicals caused him to get this neural disorder. I was delighted that Swarn's own gluttony led to his health problem. Swarn now started shaking when he stood up. His hands and legs were unsteady. I was happy to see him like this. I felt it was the bad-dua of all the girls whom he had molested that caused him to become like this. I wished he would continue to live like this for longer, but he passed away 5 years ago. Even towards the end, in that condition, he kept behaving like his former self. This surprised me. One day we were visiting to see his son's new baby. Swarn was in the bedroom. He walked out shakily and joined us. He tried to have a conversation, which was, of course, not intelligible. It sounded garbled, but he was speaking with great confidence as though to impress. Disgusted, I got up and left. I had been snubbing and ignoring him once I understood the gravity of what he had done and the implications of the kind of monster he was. Sukh and Swarn's 2 children grew up to be lovely, delightful adults. I don't see any of the negative traits of the couple in the 2 kids, so that is some consolation to me. The kids broke the cycle. They are wonderful kids, and now they both have one kid of their own. That is the best outcome that one could have hoped for. So that was the dark chapter where the molester assaulted me and changed the child innocence that I had. He destroyed something in me that day, and he started darkness for me. So that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Till then, stay healthy, stay well. Bye for now.